So from here, the first question is from Hunaid Baliwala with Bridges TV. If you want to stand right there.
Good evening. Mr. LaRouche, my name is Hunaid Baliwala. I'm from Bridges TV. I'm the head of Bridges TV, the first American Muslim television network that's available on cable satellite here in the United States. First of all, I want to thank you for all your work over the years that you have done, and I appreciate for having me here and being able to ask you this question. My question has to do with the anti-constitutional NDAA and the attempt to intimidate those who are speaking out against the World War threat, and how you suggest that a Muslim community in America should fight with all the other Americans against it. Our station is about to lose its signal. Last month we were taken off air on Comcast, and next week we are due to go off air from Verizon Fios as well. And we're not in the any financial trouble, nor have we been cited for any FCC violations or anything of that sort. What we have covered, though, is unpleasant and unauthorized news on the world threat, including many of your press releases and your criticism of the president, in full attribution. Last week, what we have been covering over the last few weeks, last week was Congressman Peter King gave a fraudulent press conference with supposedly Muslim organizations that are actually in favor of the NYPD surveillance. 13 such organizations, such Muslim organizations, were there. But I would like to point out that none of them were actually from the city or even the state of New York. There were organizations from Phoenix, from Phoenix, Arizona, from Canada, from Maryland, and other places. And 13 such organizations were there in support of this NYPD surveillance. And we also found out that they were related to what your organization has called the Project Democracy Network. The main so-called Muslim spokesperson for Peter King and such a press conference was Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, and who was also the author and the main person behind the infamous film The Third Jihad, which has caused great source of embarrassment for NYPD. I'm most interested not in what you would say about our particular situation, but rather please tell me what we are really dealing with and how must we think about how to fight back, basically. That's what my question would be.
You take the American population. Let's be frank and let's just plain tell the truth about this business. Very few Americans today, American citizens today, actually would like to vote for Obama. But there are a great number who are afraid not to vote for Obama. What you have is you have the most evil forces internationally on this planet who are allied with Obama. And this means also the British Empire, and there is a British Empire. The British Empire is quite distinct from the people of England, even though there are many people of England who are part of the empire in terms of their thinking. So the problem is that people are intimidated, and methods of intimidation are used. The only way is to take a divided people who feel that each of them in each group is as a victim, and they feel that their group forces are not sufficient to defend the group itself. And the only way you can conquer that problem is by solidarity among people who are being persecuted unjustly as a part of a system of intimidation. Most Americans hate Obama. And yet he's being posed as the next president again. He should be thrown out of office for the crimes he's committed. including crimes against humanity on the world scale. I mean, for example, let's take the hard case. We had this president who's unfit to be president, morally or otherwise. This president unlawfully launched a war in Libya. This president was responsible for the murder of the former president of Libya. This president, former president of Libya, who was shot down on orders of the British and Obama, under the supervision of Obama, this president took, this Obama, or his forces, took over and the president of Libya. And taking him captive and wounded, they executed him. They committed murder, a crime comparable to that of Adolf Hitler in terms of international law. And nobody did anything about it. And they went promptly from the intention to continue that kind of warfare. The first targets they went to after they had murdered a man who was committed no crime, who was in their captivity, who they controlled, they executed him. They murdered him in violation of all international law. And nobody did anything about it. And therefore, as a result of that, first of all, the world is terrified of the British and President Obama, who was nothing but a British stooge anyway. He probably was never actually elected. The whole election was probably fraudulent anyway. But the British paid great amount of money, including drug money, to get this man in the presidency. Then they went to go at Syria. The same thing. There is no basis in truth for this operation against Syria. It's a crime against humanity. And if you look at it from the standpoint of Arab or Muslim standards, it also is very clear what's going on. We're now, the same thing is going at Iran. There is no truth, and every relevant agency involved, there is no truth to the assumption that Iran is building or sequestering nuclear weapons. That is settled. All official agencies which have investigated, including some of the most responsible of the planet, have all settled that. And yet they are insisting that it is necessary to run a war, an attack on Iran. There's no reason. Yeah, there is a reason, but it's not no good a reason. The reason is that the British and certain other agencies intend to launch a general war against Russia and China. The issue is not an issue of Libya, Syria. It's not an issue of Iran. It's an issue of the intention of the British and the President of the United States to launch a thermonuclear attack on Russia, China, and other nations in Asia. If we allow that to happen, you're dead, because that war, if launched, would require the launching of a thermonuclear barrage of a type from which it is probable that no part of the human species would survive. Because both Russia and China, which are the primary targets for war, are nuclear powers. What would happen? Well, the nuclear attack on China and Russia itself would mean that the U.S. submarine fleet, especially that in the Pacific waters, and probably also in the Mediterranean region, or in the South Indian Ocean waters, would launch on a signal without warning, would launch a series of rockets, of thermonuclear rockets, which would be intended to extinguish the capability of conducting warfare by Russia and China. Now, Russia and China are thermonuclear powers, and especially Russia is a very senior in this matter of nuclear powers. The question is, would the human species survive such an exchange of thermonuclear barrage. Now, what on this? Why hasn't it happened yet? The only reason this has not happened yet is that patriots in the highest rank of the U.S. military and related institutions have blocked and have continued to block the threat of a thermonuclear war of this type over all the months since the time that the president of Libya, after being taken captive, was murdered. A crime against humanity for which the French, the President of the United States, and the British are liable for criminal charges under international law. So we're in a situation now where if you want to play by the rules on the street, as our friend has pointed out from New Jersey, that there's a systematic approach to various groupings of people inside the United States as elsewhere, campaigns of intimidation, harassment, threats, and so forth, victims, in order to establish a Hitler-like or Hitler-like, worse than Hitler-like, dictatorship over the United States and other countries. Therefore, if we cannot assemble ourselves as a unified force to join together to prevent this, if we allow ourselves to be divided one against the other on the matter of essential constitutional rights of our citizens and the comparable rights of people of other nations, we are making ourselves the accomplices as well as the victims of our own cowardice.